Hey everybody, this is Sue Craig, your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Cleveland, Ohio. And today I have a wonderful card for you today. I just love this card. I first saw this card on Julie Davidson's blog and loved it so much that I just had to make it. So here's what the card looks like. It's like a mini card and another card. Isn't that cool? Let me show you what we're going to need to make this card. I think it's just beautiful. The stamp set that I used is called Paradise Garden. I also used the dies. A hybrid embossing folder comes with this as well. And the embossing folder cuts out part of the leaves so they'll stick up. They're 3D. It doesn't cut them out all the way. Also, I store my stamps and dies in the same envelope, putting one on one side and one on the other. That way when I reach for one, I have the other. The paper that we're using today goes along with this. It's called Garden Poetry. You know, this is a simple pattern that they've used in different colors, and I can't tell you what a wonderful reaction I had from my classes this week. Well, all I have is blue left. You'll see the Poppy Parade also, but it's a beautiful, beautiful paper. And some people decided that they wanted to use the back side. I had one gal say, I want this for my husband, but I don't really want flowers. So she flipped it over and used the back, which I thought was a nice idea. Like I said, this has, excuse me, a hybrid embossing folder. So you can use this as a regular embossing folder, which would be 3D, because it's pretty thick. But it's also made to have that die put in here with your paper. You run it through and it will cut and it will emboss at the same time. So this is a fun one to play with. What we're going to use for our card today, we have a banner, so I used a 1.5 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock. And we're going to need 3 white panels that are 2.5 by 4 inches. One of them will be embossed with that beautiful embossing folder. One of them will be for the inside. And one of them will be for the flowers. Now when I do a class, I cut out things like that so that people in my class, all they have to do is stamp instead of having them stamp and then we cut it out. So that's what they got in their envelope. And you'll see what we do with that. I used a scrap of white and I made the leaves. These were made ahead of time for all of the people in my classes because, like I said, with all the people in the class, we only have a certain amount of time. So some of the stuff that I do ahead of time so that they're just piecing some of it together. They're embossing or they're stamping. So I used a scrap for the leaves. You're going to need 2 pieces of paper that match or go well with your designer paper. Excuse me. And these are 4.25 by 5.5. One of them will get scored at 2 3/4. That's this one here. And that's the one that's going to end up folding in half to make our mini card. The other one is going to be our card base. We'll build on top of that. The star of the show, I think, one of the stars, is our designer paper. This is 5.5 by 5.5, and you're going to score it at 1 3/4 inches from the bottom so that it can fold up. This paper is pretty cool because it has a variety of colors in it, so you end up with, like on this one, you have some Poppy Parade, but then you have pumpkin pie as well. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold and I don't know. All right, let's get started with this. For my classes, what I did was I put things into my Misty, and my Misty has a sticky mat in the bottom. Because it has a sticky mat, it really is sticky. When I close a photopolymer stamp into it. So I put something here so that it doesn't get stuck. And I don't have issues trying to get it off because it's very, very strong. So this is what my students did. They took their white flowers and put them in. And then we just stamped. This really takes the anxiety out of stamping this kind of image, because some people were very afraid they weren't going to line it up right and it wouldn't look nice. And then I took my Take Your Pick tool and lifted this out. All right. And then I'm going to put a piece of scrap paper back in here because I do not want an issue. There we go. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to be using here. One thing that most of us are not really used to is using the same color ink throughout the whole card. And that's what we're going to do with this. And so we already have the flowers for the front and the leaves. We need to do the banner. So in our Poppy Parade, we're going to use You Make the World a Better Place. So I'll bring over the banner. Remember, you want to stamp on something. I have my mat here, my silicone mat. You want to make sure that you have a nice surface so that you get a good clean stamped image. All right. We'll clean that off. If we look at the inside, again, everything is the same color. So I stamped the flower first. That way it gave me a better idea of where I wanted to put my sentiment. Excuse me. And see, I moved it off of that mat and look what happened. Let's try that again. There we go. And then my sentiment, you are appreciated. And then these little, ladies called them raindrops. They're not raindrops, but it's a cool addition to your card. All right, we're done with the stamping. This is a quick, easy card. So I'm going to leave this open and show you how we'll build the card from this. We're going to take the piece of cardstock that was scored. We're going to fold that in half. I like to use my bone folder. Most people use their bone folder this way. I use it this way. I don't know why, but that's how I learned how to do it early on. So that's how I still do it today. So on the outside of this, we're going to have this panel. So let's add some adhesive to that. This really is so pretty to have a panel like this on the outside. All right, now let's do the inside. You are appreciated. Let's try this. All right, so we have that part done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our designer paper, and the large part here is going to get adhesive on it, and it's going to go on our card base. Again, I hold two opposite corners. I'm looking to see if it's the same, the top and the bottom. All right. And it is going to go in here, but I think what I want to do is let's build the front of the card before we add it to this. To build the front of the card, what we did was we cut these flowers in half. And some people cut the stem off. They really weren't happy to kind of use it. And then we rounded this part. We rounded this part off because it looked like it was pretty straight from cutting the other flower off of it. So we just cut them apart. And what I did was I added dimensionals to the back of everything. So on the back of each flower, on this piece, I put it in the center. Excuse me. Because we're going to have the flower and the leaves added to this as well. And I'm looking for, well, I'll use my scissors. I'm going to cut up one of these dimensionals for the flowers because I don't need a big dimensional back here. Okay. Some people found it easier to hold the banner in their hand and to build their card. I found it easier to put the banner down, how it was going to be placed with that one dimensional, and then because it's not going to move now, it would be easier for me to add the other pieces. One thing you want to keep in mind is that these pieces at the top, if they stick over the edge, you can see this one right here, it's bent. Because when you open the card, it bends this piece. So when you're making this, you want to make sure that your flower and your leaves don't go above the fold here. So let's see how we can do that. So I just played around with the flower until I found kind of what I liked. Let's see here. I'm flipping it around because I'm noticing that there's a dark color on that. I don't know how that got on there, but for now, that's just what we'll do. And then I added the leaf next to it, and you can play around here. It can go above the flower, it can go behind the flower, however you want it. But like I said, try to keep in mind that you want those pieces to stay below the fold. Some people with this one wanted it to go down and kind of drape off that way. Other people didn't like it and cut it off. Still other people put it underneath. So it really doesn't matter. It's going to look pretty however you decide to do it. And you're going to add your greenery. Kind of looks Christmassy, doesn't it? This down here can hang off. That's not a problem. All right, now let's turn this over and let's add our adhesive. And with this open, we're just going to center this right and left, up and down. And when we have it where we want it, we push it down. We open this up and fold the flap up. Now let's add some bling. These are, again, the online exclusives, and these are called Garden Epoxy Dots. They come with the suite. And I guess because I have some of the pumpkin here, I'm going to use, oh boy, maybe the yellow dots, huh? That doesn't look bad. There we go. And some of the people even added a flower inside, so we might as well use up the last yellow dot on the flower on the inside. You make the world a better place. You are appreciated. Well, there you have it, a quick and easy card to make and send. That's important, you know. We make cards and then we put them away so that we have samples for another day, but we don't need to do that because we have tons of examples and catalogs online. Anywhere you look, we have samples. So make these cards, send them, make somebody's day. I hope you liked the card. I hope you give it a try, and thanks for watching.